Tom Rodriguez wiped the sweat from his forehead as he watched another one of his construction trucks get blocked by angry protesters. It was the third time this week, and he was running out of patience. His small construction company had been the backbone of Riverside Valley for 20 years, but now everything was falling apart. The trouble started 6 months ago when Blackwood Corporation announced their plans to tear down the old downtown area. They wanted to build a massive shopping complex right where the historic buildings stood. These weren't just any buildings. They were the heart of the community. The old movie theater where Tom had his first date. The corner bakery that had been serving the same families for 3 generations. The library where kids still went after school. Tom's phone buzzed constantly, with calls from worried workers. "Boss, my wife is scared we're going to lose everything," said Jake, his best foreman. "The whole town is going crazy. People are picking sides like it's some kind of war." And it really did feel like a war. The Blackwood family had money and lawyers. Tom's side had passion and desperation. Every town meeting turned into a shouting match. The local newspaper ran angry letters to the editor every day. Even families were splitting up over the issue. Tom remembered his grandfather's stories about the Blackwood family 60 years ago. His grandfather had owned the biggest construction business in the county, but old Henry Blackwood had used his political connections to steal a major contract. And Tom's family had lost everything. They'd been rebuilding ever since. And now history was repeating itself. That Tuesday morning, Tom was standing outside the town hall when a sleek black car pulled up. Out stepped a woman who looked like she belonged in a magazine. She was tall, with dark hair pulled back in a perfect bun, wearing a business suit that probably cost more than most people made in a month. This had to be Elena Blackwood, the company heiress everyone was talking about. Tom had seen her picture in the business section of the newspaper, but seeing her in person was different. She moved with confidence, like she owned the world. Her heels clicked on the pavement as she walked toward the building, ignoring the protesters who started shouting. As soon as they saw her, "There she is," someone yelled, "the one who wants to destroy our town." Elena didn't even look at them. She just kept walking, her face calm and professional. Tom found himself staring, trying to figure out what kind of person could be so cold about destroying people's lives and memories. The town meeting that night was packed. People were standing in the aisles, and the air was thick with anger. Tom sat in the front row with his crew, while Elena sat on the opposite side with her team of lawyers and consultants. Mayor Johnson tried to keep order, but it was useless. Every time someone spoke, the other side would start yelling. Mrs. Patterson, who owned the flower shop, was crying as she talked about her family's legacy. On the other side, Elena's project manager talked about job creation and economic growth. Then Elena stood up to speak. The room went quiet, but not the good kind of quiet. It was the kind of silence that comes before a storm. "I understand your concerns," she said, her voice steady and clear. "But this project will bring prosperity to your community. Change is never easy, but it's necessary for growth." That's when Tom couldn't take it anymore. He stood up, his hands shaking with anger. "Easy for you to say. You don't live here. You don't understand what these places mean to us." Elena turned to look at him, and for a moment, their eyes met. There was something in her expression that surprised him. Not the coldness he expected, but something that looked almost like pain. "You're Tom Rodriguez," she said. It wasn't a question. "That's right. And my family has been part of this community for generations. We're not just going to stand by and watch you tear it down." The crowd started getting louder, people shouting. From both sides, someone threw a paper cup. Mayor Johnson was banging his gavel. But nobody was listening. That's when things got really bad. A fight broke out near the back of the room. Someone pushed someone else, and suddenly everyone was on their feet, shouting and pushing. Tom saw Elena's security guard move toward her, but she waved him off in the chaos. Tom found himself standing close to Elena. She was calm in the middle of all the madness, like she was used to being in the eye of the storm. "This has to stop," she said, loud enough for him to hear over the noise. "Then cancel your project. Tom shot back. Elena looked at him for a long moment. Meet me tomorrow. 7 p.m., the old bridge on Miller Road. Just you and me. Tom was so surprised he almost didn't answer. Why? Because I have an idea. Something that might save both our families. The next evening, Tom drove to the old bridge, his mind racing with possibilities. What could she possibly have in mind? The bridge was a quiet spot where the river ran slow and peaceful. It was the kind of place where people came to think. Elena was already there, leaning against the railing. She traded her business suit for jeans and a simple sweater. She looked younger, more human somehow. You came, she said when she saw him. I keep my word, Tom replied, walking up to stand beside her. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the water flow beneath them. Finally, Elena spoke. My board is furious with me. They think I'm losing control of the situation. If this project fails, they'll remove me from the company. Everything my family built will be gone. Tom was surprised by her honesty. So why tell me? Because I've been thinking about what you said. About family and community. I've spent my whole life in boardrooms and hotels. I don't know what it's like to have roots somewhere. She turned to face him, and in the soft evening light, Tom could see that her eyes were tired. I have a proposal, she said, something that sounds crazy, but it might be the only way to end this before someone gets seriously hurt. Tom waited, his heart beating faster for reasons he couldn't explain. Marry me, Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. Tom stared at her, sure he'd heard wrong. What? A marriage between our families? It's the only thing that might stop this war. Your people would see it as a victory. The Blackwood heirs choosing love over business. My board would see it as a strategic alliance. The media would eat it up. Tom felt like the world was spinning. You're serious? Completely. It would be a business arrangement, nothing more. We live together for appearances, make public. Appearances show that our families have made peace. The project gets redesigned to preserve the historical buildings. Everyone wins. And you'd really do this? Give up your freedom for a business deal. Elena's laugh was bitter. What freedom? I haven't made a personal choice in years. Everything I do is for the company, for the family name. At least this way, I'd be choosing something that helps people instead of hurting them. Tom looked out at the water, trying to process what she was saying. It was insane. It was impossible. But as he thought about his workers, their families, the town that was tearing itself apart, he realized it might also be brilliant. There would have to be rules, Elena continued. Boundaries. This would be strictly business. We'd share a house but keep separate bedrooms. No expectations beyond the public arrangement. Tom turned to look at her again. The wedding night is off limits. Exactly, Elena said, though something flickered in her eyes. This is about saving our families, not about romance. Tom knew he should walk away. This was crazy. But as he looked at Elena, seeing not just his enemy, but a woman trapped by circumstances beyond her control, he felt something shift inside him. I need time to think, he said. Elena nodded. Of course. But Tom, the town council meets again. Tomorrow night. If we're going to do this, we need to decide soon. That night, Tom couldn't sleep. He sat on his porch, looking out at the town lights, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. His grandfather's stories, his workers, worried faces, the woman on the bridge who'd offered to sacrifice her freedom to save them all. By morning, he made his decision. He called Elena and said simply, yes. 2 hours later, they stood together at a hastily called press conference, announcing their engagement to a stunned crowd. The woman who'd been his enemy was now going to be his wife. The war was over, but Tom had a feeling the real battle was just beginning. The engagement announcement hit the town like a lightning bolt within hours. News trucks were parked outside Tom's construction office, and reporters were camping outside Elena's hotel. The local diner couldn't keep up with all the out-of-town journalists ordering coffee and asking questions. Tom's phone rang nonstop. His mother called crying, his sister called screaming, and his workers called confused. Boss, did you really get engaged to that Blackwood woman? Jake asked during their morning meeting. The same woman who was trying to tear down our town. It's complicated, Tom said, which was the understatement of the century. The hardest call was from his mother. Tommy, what have you done? She asked, her voice shaking. That family destroyed your grandfather. They took everything from us. And now you're going to marry one of them? Tom sat in his truck outside the construction site, watching his crew work while he tried to explain something he barely understood. Himself, Mom, this might be the only way to save everything we've built here. But marriage, Tommy, that's not a business deal. That's your life. Elena was dealing with her own family drama. Her father called from Switzerland, where he was supposedly retired but still kept tabs on everything. Elena, the board is in chaos. He said during their video call. Half of them think you've lost your mind. The other half are calling you a genius. What do you think? Elena asked, sitting in her hotel room with legal documents spread across the bed. I think you're braver than I ever was, her father said quietly. I spent my whole life making enemies. Maybe it's time someone in our family made peace. The wedding planning became a strange dance between two people who barely knew each other. They met at the local wedding planner's office. A small woman named Mrs. Chen who seemed thrilled to be planning what she called the wedding of the century. Now, what's your vision for the big day? Mrs. Chen asked, her notebook ready. Tom and Elena looked at each other across the small table. They hadn't talked about any of this. Something simple, Elena said finally. Nothing too fancy, but memorable. Tom added, this is about bringing the community together. They spent the next hour making decisions about flowers, music, and food. It was surreal. Tom found himself learning things about Elena he'd never expected. She preferred simple white roses over expensive orchids. She wanted the local high school band to play instead of hiring professional musicians. She even suggested having the reception at the community center instead of some fancy hotel. You're not what I expected, Tom said as they walked out of the meeting. What did you expect? Elena asked. Someone who only cared about expensive things. Someone who looked down on small towns like ours. Elena stopped walking. I grew up in boarding schools, Tom. I spent holidays in hotels because my parents were always traveling for business. I've never had a real home. Maybe that's why I don't understand what I'm taking away from people. That conversation stuck with Tom for days. He started seeing Elena differently, not as the enemy, but as someone who'd been shaped by circumstances just like he had. They decided Elena would move into Tom's family ranch house after the wedding. It was a big old place with plenty of room for separate bedrooms. Tom's grandmother had built it in the 1950s, and it had been home to 3 generations of Rodriguez family members. I'll take the guest room upstairs, Elena said during their house tour. We should keep as much distance as possible. Agreed, Tom said, though something about the way she said it bothered him. The house tour was awkward. Elena examined everything with the careful attention of someone who lived in hotels her whole life. She ran her fingers along the old wooden banister, studied the family photos on the walls, and spent a long time looking at the view from the kitchen window. It's beautiful, she said finally. I can see why you fight for this place. My grandfather built the addition after he lost his business, Tom explained. He said this house was proof that the Rodriguez family couldn't be destroyed. Elena was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry about what happened to your family. What my great-grandfather did was wrong. It was the first time anyone from the Blackwood family had ever apologized for anything. Tom felt something shift between them, a tiny crack in the wall they built. The real work began when Elena started redesigning the development project. She set up a temporary office in the town library, spreading blueprints and city planning documents across every table. Tom found himself stopping by after work, drawn by curiosity about what she was actually planning. Look at this, Elena said one evening, showing him a new set of drawings. What if we build the shopping complex on the empty lot by the highway instead? We could turn the old downtown into a historical district. Tom studied the plans. That would cost you millions more in land acquisition. I know, but it would save what matters most to the community. They worked late into the night, Elena explaining architectural concepts while Tom shared his knowledge of the local area. She was brilliant, he realized, not just book smart, but creative and thoughtful in ways that surprised him. You really don't have to do this, Tom said as they rolled up the blueprints around midnight. Yes, I do. Elena said, I'm tired of being the villain in everyone's story. The engagement photos were scheduled for the following week. Tom had never felt more awkward in his life. The photographer, a cheerful man named Pete, kept asking them to look more in love. Pretend you're seeing each other for the first time, Pete suggested. Remember that magical moment when you knew you were meant to be together. Tom and Elena exchanged glances. The magical moment had been Elena asking him to enter a fake marriage. To save both their families? Not exactly the stuff of fairy tales. But something strange happened during the photo session. As they posed by the old oak tree in the town square, Elena's hand felt natural in his. When Pete asked them to look at each other instead of the camera, Tom found himself genuinely smiling at the concentration on Elena's face. That's it, Pete shouted. That's the shot. Later, looking at the photos, Tom was surprised by what he saw. They looked like a real couple. There was something in Elena's eyes, something soft and genuine, that made him wonder if she was feeling the same confusion he was. The town was slowly warming up to the engagement. Mrs. Patterson from the flower shop offered to donate arrangements for the wedding. The local bakery started working on cake designs. Even some of Tom's workers who had been skeptical were coming around. I got to admit, boss, Jake said one morning, she's not what I expected. Saw her at the grocery store yesterday, and she was talking to everyone like regular people. No attitude at all. Tom's mother was the holdout. She agreed to meet Elena for dinner, but Tom could tell she was determined not to like her future daughter-in-law. The dinner was at Tom's house, with Elena cooking. It was the first time Tom had seen her do anything domestic, and she seemed nervous. I'm not much of a cook, she admitted, stirring something that smelled amazing. But I learned a few things from the kitchen staff at school. Tom's mother arrived with her arms crossed and her mind made up. But as the evening went on, Tom watched Elena work her quiet magic. She asked about family history, listened to stories about Tom's childhood, and showed genuine interest in his mother's garden, you know? His mother said as they were cleaning up, "You're nothing like what I expected from a Blackwood." "I'm trying to be better than my family's reputation," Elena replied, after his mother left. Tom and Elena sat on the porch, both exhausted from the performance. "Thank you," Tom said. "For tonight, for everything you're doing. We're partners." "Now," Elena said, "at least for the next year or two." But as she said it, Tom noticed she wouldn't meet his eyes. The business arrangement was getting more complicated by the day, and they both knew it. The wedding was still 3 weeks away, but Tom was already wondering if they'd be able to stick to their original plan, living together, working together, pretending to be in love. It was getting harder to tell where the acting ended and something real began. Elena stood up to go inside, pausing at the door. "Tom, do you ever wonder if we're making a mistake every day?" he admitted. "But I think we're making the right mistake." She smiled at that, the first real smile he'd seen from her. "Good night, Tom." "Good night, Elena." As she went upstairs to her room, Tom stayed on the porch, looking out at the town lights and wondering what he'd gotten himself into. The arrangement was supposed to be simple, but nothing about Elena Blackwood was turning out to be simple at all. The wedding day arrived with perfect spring weather. Tom stood in front of the mirror in his childhood bedroom, adjusting his tie for the 10th time. His hands were shaking, and he couldn't figure out why. This was supposed to be just a business arrangement, but his heart was beating like he was about to marry the love of his life. "You look nervous," his sister Lisa said, peeking into the room. "Having second thoughts?" "It's not real," Tom reminded himself as much as her. "It's just for show." But as he drove to the town square, seeing the crowds of people and news cameras, it felt pretty real. The whole town had turned out. People who'd been fighting for months were now standing together, waiting to see if this crazy plan would actually work. Elena was getting ready in the old church rectory. Her best friend from college, Diana, had flown in to help her prepare. I still can't believe you're doing this, Diana said, fastening the buttons on Elena's dress. Marrying a man you barely know to end a business dispute. It's not that simple, Elena said, staring at herself in the mirror. She was wearing her grandmother's wedding dress, a simple but elegant design from the 1960s. Tom's not what I expected. What do you mean? Elena touched the necklace Tom had given her the night before. It wasn't expensive, just a simple piece his grandmother had worn. But the way he presented it, nervous and hopeful, had made her feel something she'd never experienced before. I mean, he's kind and honest, and he really cares about people. Elena paused. I've spent my whole life around men who only cared about money and power. Tom's different. The ceremony was held in the town square, right where the old fountain stood. Tom's uncle, who was a retired judge, agreed to perform the service. Folding chairs were arranged in neat rows, and the high school band played softly in the background. Tom's breath caught when he saw Elena walking down the aisle. She looked beautiful, but more than that, she looked happy. Really happy, not the polite smile she wore at business meetings. When she reached him, she whispered, "You clean up nice, Rodriguez. You're not so bad yourself, Blackwood." He whispered back. The vows they'd written were supposed to be generic, safe words about partnership and commitment. But as Tom spoke, looking into Elena's eyes, the words felt different coming out of his mouth. I promise to stand by you, to support your dreams, and to be the partner you deserve. Elena's voice was steady, but Tom noticed her hands trembling slightly. I promise to trust you, to be honest with you, and to build something good together. When the judge said, "You may kiss the bride," Tom hesitated. They talked about this moment, agreed it would be brief and appropriate. But as he leaned in, something changed. The kiss was supposed to last 3 seconds. Instead, it went on for 10, then 15. Elena's hand came up to touch his face, and Tom forgot there were 300 people watching. When they finally broke apart, the crowd erupted in cheers. Tom saw tears in Elena's eyes, and he wondered if his own emotions were showing too clearly. The reception was held in the community center, decorated with flowers from every garden in town. Tom's mother had organized a potluck, and the tables were covered with homemade dishes. Elena moved through the crowd like she'd been born to this life, talking to everyone, laughing at old stories, and genuinely seeming to enjoy herself. Your wife is something special, old Mr. Peterson told Tom as they watched Elena help serve cake to the kids. She's got a good heart. She's not really my wife, Tom started to say, then stopped. Today, she was his wife. Whatever happened later, today she was his. The first dance was to a song by the local band. Elena fit perfectly in Tom's arms, and they moved together like they'd been dancing for years. This is nice, she said, her head close to his shoulder. Better than I expected, Tom agreed. The whole day is better than I expected. As the evening wound down, Tom realized he was dreading going home. Not because he didn't want to be with Elena, but because he did. Too much. Their house felt different when they walked in that night. It was officially their house now, their shared space. Elena kicked off her fancy shoes and sank onto the couch with a happy sigh. My feet are killing me, she said. But it was worth it. Did you see Mrs. Chen crying during the ceremony? And your mother actually hugged me. Tom sat beside her, still in his wedding suit. You were amazing today. Thank you. For what? For making it real. For making everyone believe in us. Elena looked at him, and something passed between them that neither wanted to name. Tom. I know, he said quickly. Separate bedrooms, business arrangement. I remember. But as they said goodnight at the top of the stairs, both of them lingered. Elena's hand was on her doorknob, Tom's on his. The hallway between their rooms felt like a mile. Good night, husband, Elena said softly. Good night, wife, Tom replied. Living together turned out to be easier than either had expected. Elena was neat and organized. Tom was easygoing and considerate. They developed routines without discussing them. Tom made coffee in the morning. Elena cooked dinner at night. They shared the newspaper and took turns choosing what to watch on TV. The town council meetings became joint appearances. Elena would present the technical aspects of the development project, while Tom explained how it would benefit the workers and families. They were a good team, complementing each other's strengths. You two are like a real married couple, Mayor Johnson observed after one particularly successful meeting. It's nice to see. Tom and Elena exchanged glances. The line between acting and reality was getting blurrier every day. 3 weeks after the wedding, Elena started doing yoga on the back porch every morning. Tom discovered this by accident when he came downstairs early and saw her through the kitchen window. She moved with grace and concentration, completely absorbed in her practice. He tried not to watch, but found himself making excuses to be in the kitchen during her morning routine. One day, she caught him looking. "Sorry," Tom said. Embarrassed. "I didn't mean to stare. It's okay. I like having the space to do this. I never had a real home before. This is your home now," Tom said. Then immediately felt awkward about how that sounded. Elena smiled. "I know. It's nice." Their Sunday dinners became legendary. Tom would invite his whole crew and their families, and Elena would help cook for everyone. She learned to make his grandmother's recipes, and the workers' kids started calling her Aunt Elena. "She's good for you, boss," Jake said one Sunday, watching Elena teach his daughter how to make tortillas. "Haven't seen you this happy in years." Tom realized Jake was right. He was happy, happier than he'd been since before all the trouble started. But it was dangerous happiness, built on a foundation that was supposed to be temporary. The problem was Elena seemed happy too. She laughed more, relaxed more, and stopped checking her phone constantly. She traded her business suits for jeans and comfortable sweaters. She looked younger, more alive. One evening, as they were cleaning up after dinner, Elena accidentally dropped a plate. It shattered on the kitchen floor, and she just stood there looking at the pieces. "Hey, it's okay," Tom said, moving to help clean up. "It's just a plate." "It was your grandmother's plate," Elena said, her voice shaking. "I broke something that belonged to your family." Tom stopped cleaning and looked at her. "Elena, you're part of this family now. Everything that was my grandmother's is yours, too." The words hung in the air between them, meaning more than either wanted to admit. That night, Tom lay in bed thinking about the conversation. Elena was part of his family now. When had that happened? When had she stopped being the enemy and become someone he looked forward to seeing every morning? Down the hall, Elena was having similar thoughts. She'd never belonged anywhere before, never felt like she had a real home. But here, in this old house with this complicated man, she felt like she might be finding something she'd never known she was looking for. The arrangement was supposed to be simple, but 3 months into their marriage, both Tom and Elena were beginning to realize that nothing about their situation was simple at all. They were playing house, but somewhere along the way, it had started feeling real. The question was, what were they going to do about it? Part 4, Cracks in the Foundation, expanded story, first real test of their arrangement, came during the autumn storm. Tom woke up to the sound of rain pounding the roof and wind howling through the trees. The power had gone out sometime during the night, and the house was cold and dark. He found Elena in the kitchen, trying to make coffee on the gas stove. She was wearing an old sweater over her pajamas, her hair messy from sleep. Something about seeing her like this, unguarded and real, made Tom's chest tighten. "Storm knocked out the power lines," she said without looking up. "I called the electric company, but they said it could be days before they get to our area." "Days?" Tom groaned. "There's no heat, no lights, no way to cook." "We have the fireplace," Elena pointed out, "and the gas stove works. We'll manage." What Tom didn't expect was how intimate it would feel, the two of them trapped in the house together. They dragged blankets and pillows into the living room, building a fort around the fireplace like kids at a sleepover. Elena found board games in the hall closet, and they spent the afternoon playing cards and talking. "I never did this as a kid," Elena said, dealing another hand of crazy eights. "The boarding schools have backup generators. We never had to rough it. What was it like?" Tom asked. Growing up in those schools, Elena was quiet for a moment, staring at her cards, lonely, safe, but lonely. I had everything I needed, but nobody to share it with. Is that why you work so much? To avoid being alone. Maybe. Eleanor looked up at him. What about you? You seem to collect people. Your workers, their families, half the town. I guess I learned early that family isn't just blood, Tom said. It's the people who show up when you need them. That night, with the fire crackling and the storm raging outside, they found themselves talking about things they'd never shared with anyone. Eleanor told him about the pressure she'd felt to live up to her family's reputation, how she'd built walls to protect herself from getting hurt. Tom talked about losing his father young, about the responsibility he'd felt to take care of everyone. I've never told anyone that, Eleanor said after Tom shared a story about his father's funeral. Neither have I, Tom replied. They fell asleep. On the couch, Eleanor curled up on one end, Tom on the other, sharing a blanket. Tom woke up in the middle of the night to find Eleanor shivering. Without thinking, he moved closer and pulled her against him. She didn't protest, just settled into his warmth with a contented sigh. When morning came, they woke up tangled together, Eleanor's head on Tom's chest, his arm around her. For a moment, neither moved, both pretending to still be asleep while they figured out how to handle this new development. This doesn't change anything, Eleanor said finally, her voice muffled against his shirt. Right, Tom agreed, just staying warm. But as Eleanor pulled away and went upstairs to get dressed, Tom knew everything had changed. He'd held her all night, felt her breathe against him, and now he couldn't pretend this was just business anymore. The power came back on that evening, and life returned to normal. But there was a new awareness between them, a charged feeling that made every casual touch feel significant. When Eleanor handed him his coffee in the morning, their fingers would brush and both would freeze. When they sat together at town meetings, Tom was hyper-aware of Eleanor's presence beside him. Their first real fight happened 2 weeks later. Tom came home from work to find Eleanor still at her computer, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. She'd been working 16-hour days, designing the new development project, and she looked exhausted. Eleanor, you need to take a break, Tom said, taking the coffee cup from her hands. I'm fine, she said, reaching for the cup back. I need to finish this proposal. When's the last time you ate something? Eleanor paused, clearly trying to remember. I had a sandwich at lunch. That was yesterday, Tom said. You're running yourself into the ground. I can take care of myself, Eleanor snapped. I've been doing it my whole life. Well, you don't have to anymore, Tom shot back. We're supposed to be partners, remember? That means I get to worry about you. Eleanor stood up, her eyes flashing. Don't pretend this is real just because we had one nice night during the storm. This is business, Tom. I'm not your real wife. The words hit Tom like a slap, right? He said quietly, just business. Eleanor immediately looked like she regretted what she'd said. But Tom was already walking away. He grabbed his keys and left the house, driving aimlessly through town until he ended up at the old bridge, where Eleanor had first proposed their arrangement. He sat there for 2 hours, watching the water and trying to sort out his feelings. When he came home, Eleanor was sitting on the porch steps, wrapped in a blanket. I'm sorry, she said as soon as she saw him. I was tired and stressed, and I took it out on you. Tom sat beside her on the step. I'm sorry too. I was being pushy. You were being kind. Eleanor said, I'm not used to people caring about me. Well, get used to it, Tom said. Because like it or not, I do care about you. Eleanor looked at him, and for a moment, Tom thought she might say something important. Instead, she just nodded and went inside. The real crisis came a month later. Tom was at the construction site when Jake came running over, panic in his voice. Boss, there's been an accident. The crane malfunctioned, and Rodriguez is trapped under some beams. Tom's blood ran cold. Rodriguez was his youngest worker, barely 22, with a wife and new baby. Tom called 911 while running toward the accident site, his heart pounding. The next few hours were a blur of paramedics, police, and insurance investigators. Rodriguez was alive, but badly injured, and Tom spent the day at the hospital with the family. When he finally got home that night, Elena was waiting. I heard about the accident, she said, standing up from the couch. How is he? Stable, Tom said, sinking into a chair. But it's going to be a long recovery. His family has no money for the medical bills. Without hesitation, Elena said, I'll cover them. Tom looked up at her. Elena, that could be hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't care. He works for us. He was building our project when he got hurt. It's our responsibility. The insurance will cover some of it. Not enough, Elena interrupted. I've seen how insurance companies work. They'll find ways to deny claims, delay payments. This family needs help now. Tom felt something crack open in his chest. Why would you do that? Because Rodriguez isn't just your employee, Elena said. He's part of our family. And family takes care of each other. That night, Tom couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what Elena had said about family, about the way she'd stepped up without hesitation. He got up and walked to the window, looking out at the moonlit yard. He turned around to find Elena standing in the doorway, wearing a robe over her pajamas. Couldn't sleep either. She asked. Tom shook his head. Keep thinking about what could have happened. What if we lost him? Elena walked over to stand beside him at the window. But we didn't. He's going to be okay. Thanks to you, Tom said. What you did today, taking care of his family, that was incredible. It was the right thing to do. Tom turned to face her. Elena, I need to tell you something. Don't, Elena said quickly. Please don't. Why not? Because I'm scared, Elena whispered. I'm scared of what you're going to say, and I'm scared of what I might say back. They stood there in the moonlight, inches apart, both afraid to move forward and unable to step back. This was supposed to be simple, Elena said. I know, Tom replied. But it's not anymore. Elena's hand came up to touch his face, and Tom held his breath. For a moment, he thought she was going to kiss him. Instead, she pulled back. I need time, she said. I need to think. Elena, please, she said. Just give me time to figure this out. Tom nodded. Even though it was the last thing he wanted to do, Elena went back to her room, and Tom stayed by the window, knowing that their arrangement had just become infinitely more complicated. The next morning, Elena was gone when Tom woke up. She left a note saying she was visiting Rodriguez in the hospital, but Tom suspected she was also avoiding the conversation they both knew they needed to have. That evening, they sat at opposite ends of the couch, both pretending to watch TV, while actually stealing glances at each other. The air between them crackled with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. Tom, Elena said finally, about last night. I know, Tom said. Business arrangement. I remember. Elena looked like she wanted to say more, but instead she just nodded and went upstairs. Tom sat alone in the living room, wondering how much longer they could keep pretending that what was happening between them was just pretend. The foundation of their arrangement was cracking, and both of them knew it. The question was whether they were brave enough to see what was underneath. Part 5. The Choice. Expanded story 1 year after their wedding. Tom woke up to find Elena sitting at the kitchen table with a letter in her hands. She looked like she hadn't slept, and there were dark circles under her eyes. What's that? Tom asked, pouring himself coffee and trying to act normal, even though nothing between them had felt normal for months. A job offer, Elena said quietly, for Morrison and Associates in New York. They want me to head their Sustainable Development Division. Tom's coffee cup stopped halfway to his mouth. New York. It's a good offer, really good. The kind of opportunity I've been working toward my whole career. Tom sat down across from her, his heart sinking. When would you start? Next month, if I accept. Elena finally looked up at him. Tom, this is what we talked about a year ago. When we made this arrangement, we always knew it would be temporary, right? Tom said, though the word felt like sandpaper in his throat, temporary. They'd been dancing around their feelings for months, ever since the night of the storm. There had been moments when Tom thought they might finally talk about what was happening between them, but Elena always pulled back at the last second. The project is almost finished, Elena continued. The new development is approved, the historical district is protected, and our families aren't fighting anymore. We accomplished what we set out to do. So that's it? Tom asked. Mission accomplished. Time to move on. Elena's hands tightened on the letter. What else is there? Tom stared at her, wondering if she was really asking or if she was just too scared to admit what they both knew. I don't know, Elena. You tell me. But Elena just looked away, and Tom felt something inside him break. That night, Tom couldn't sleep. He sat on the porch, looking out at the town lights and thinking about everything that had changed in the past year. The construction project was nearly done, and it was beautiful. Elena had designed something that honored the town's history, while bringing in new businesses and jobs. She kept every promise she'd made. But somewhere along the way, Tom had started hoping she'd break the most important promise of all, the one about keeping this arrangement strictly business. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to see Elena coming out of the house. She was wearing one of his old sweaters over her pajamas, and she looked smaller somehow, more vulnerable. Couldn't sleep either? She asked, sitting beside him on the porch swing. Too much thinking, Tom said. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the night sounds of the town. Finally, Elena spoke. I've never stayed anywhere this long, she said. Never had a real home. This is your home. Tom said. These people care about you. I care about you. I know, Elena whispered. That's what scares me. Tom turned to look at her. Why does that scare you? Because caring about people means they can hurt you. And I've spent my whole life making sure nobody could do that. Elena, no. Let me finish. Elena's voice was shaking. I've been thinking about what you said last night, about what else there is, and the truth is, I'm terrified to find out. Tom's heart was pounding. Terrified of what? Of wanting something I can't have, of hoping for something that might not be real. What if it is real? Tom asked. What if what's happening between us is the most real thing either of us has ever experienced? Elena's eyes filled with tears. Then I'm in trouble, because I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be someone's real wife. Tom reached over and took her hand. Elena, I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. She nodded, not trusting her voice. I love you, Tom said. Not the arrangement, not the convenience, not the business deal. I love you. I love the way you make your coffee too strong and how you steal all the blankets at night. I love how you learned to make my grandmother's recipes and how you cry during old movies. I love that you care about this town and these people even though you didn't have to. Elena was crying now, tears streaming down her face. Tom, I love that you're brave enough to stand up to your family and strong enough to change everything about your life for people you barely knew. I love your laugh and your stubborn streak and the way you hum while you're working. Tom's voice was getting rougher. I love you, Elena, all of you, and I don't want this to be temporary anymore. Elena stared at him, her face a mixture of hope and fear. What are you saying? I'm saying forget the arrangement. Forget the business deal. Marry me for real this time. Stay here because you want to, not because you have to. Tom, I don't know if I can. Yes, you do, Tom interrupted. You've been my real wife for months, Elena. You just haven't admitted it yet. Elena pulled her hand away and stood up, pacing to the edge of the porch. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Getting to attach, wanting too much. Why is wanting me too much? Tom asked, standing up too. Because what if it doesn't work? What if we're just caught up in playing house and when the novelty wears off, we realize we don't actually fit together? What if we do fit together? Tom shot back. What if this is exactly what we're both supposed to be doing? Elena turned around to face him, and Tom could see the war going on in her eyes. I got another call today, she said, from the board of directors. They want to offer me my father's position, CEO of the entire company. Tom felt like she'd punched him in the stomach. CEO, everything I've worked for my whole life. Tom, everything my family built. They're offering it to me in New York. In New York, Elena confirmed. Tom walked over to the porch railing, gripping it so hard his knuckles turned white. So you've already decided? I haven't decided anything, Elena said. That's the problem. A year ago, this would have been easy. Take the job. move to New York, build my career. But now what? Now I don't know if I want that life anymore. Elena's voice was so quiet Tom almost missed it. I don't know if I want to go back to living in hotels and eating dinner alone and pretending I don't need anyone. Tom turned around to face her. Then don't. It's not that simple. It is that simple, Tom said, walking back to her. Elena, you get to choose. For the first time in your life, you get to choose what you want instead of what other people expect from you. Elena looked up at him, and Tom could see her defenses crumbling. What if I choose wrong? What if you choose right? Tom cupped her, face in his hands. What if you choose to be happy? Elena closed her eyes and leaned into his touch. I'm scared, Tom. I know. I'm scared too. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. Elena opened her eyes and looked at him. Really looked at him? You mean that? I mean it. Elena, I don't care about your family's company or your career or any of that. I care about you. Just you. I love you too, Elena whispered, and Tom's heart nearly stopped. I've been in love with you for months, and I've been terrified to admit it. You love me. I love you, Elena said more firmly. I love how you take care of everyone around you. I love how you make me feel like I belong somewhere. I love that you see me as more than just a business deal or a trophy wife. Tom pulled her closer. Elena, I love that you never try to change me or make me smaller. I love your family and this town and the life we've built together. Elena's voice was getting stronger. I love you, Tom Rodriguez, and I don't want to go to New York. You don't. I want to stay here. I want to build something with you, something real. I want to be your actual wife, not just on paper. Tom's heart was racing. What about your career? I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll start my own firm here. Maybe I'll work on projects that actually matter to me instead of just making money for shareholders. Elena smiled through her tears. Maybe I'll finally build the life I actually want instead of the one I thought I was supposed to. Want to. Tom kissed her then, soft and gentle at first, then deeper as Elena kissed him back. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. So what now? Elena asked. Now we go upstairs, Tom said, and you call New York and tell them you're not interested in their job offer. And then we figure out how to be actually married instead of just pretending. Elena laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound Tom had ever heard. I think I'd like that, even if it means sharing a bedroom? Tom asked with a grin. Especially if it means sharing a bedroom, Elena replied. Pulling him toward the house. As they walked inside together, Tom realized that their arrangement had ended exactly the way it was supposed to, not with a business deal, but with a choice. Elena had chosen him, chosen this life, chosen love over everything else she'd been offered. And for the first time in either of their lives, they were exactly where they belonged. 6 months later, Elena did start her own sustainable development firm, working on projects that preserve communities instead of destroying them. Their first anniversary party was the biggest celebration the town had ever seen, and this time, nobody had to pretend to be happy when their first child was born 2 years later. The local newspaper ran a headline that made them both laugh. The baby who completed the piece. But Tom and Elena knew the truth. The piece had been completed the night Elena chose to stay. The night they both chose love over fear. The arrangement was over. The marriage had just begun.